Not Multisim versus Proteus. I'm very sorry. It's Microwind versus Multisim and Proteus. Right? So if we ask what is the similarity between these tools, the similarity between these tools is that all three are electronics CAD tools. That is, all three tools are used as computer-aided design tools in the field of electronics or electronics and telecommunication. Okay, so this is the similarity. The similarity is that all three are electronics CAD tools, but the difference is that their utility lies in different domains. So what is the difference between these tools? Is that Multisim and Proteus. So all of you have used Multisim and Proteus, and whenever you open these tools, in the central portion of the GUI, you will see one dotted workspace. Okay, so that dotted workspace is the place where you drag and drop different active components such as transistors and passive components such as R, L, and C, and also you put some sources. And what you do is that after the circuit is connected using different components, you will connect measuring instruments such as voltmeters, ammeters, power meters, watt meters, or even oscilloscopes. So that particular workspace of Multisim and Proteus, it actually represents the top view of a printed circuit board. That is why I repeat that the workspace of Multisim and Proteus tools represent the top view of a printed circuit board. That is why all the dimensions on Multisim and Proteus workspace are in centimeters, right? So the important point about these two tools is that Multisim and Proteus workspace represents a PCB. All dimensions are in centimeters, maybe millimeters, not below that. Okay. On the other hand, Microwind is a layout editor. It is actually VLSI CAD tool. So basically, I call Multisim and Proteus simply as circuit schematic editors, which are actually meant ultimately to take your design on the PCB level. Okay. So ultimately on a PCB level, not anything below that. On the other hand, Microwind is a VLSI CAD tool. It is a VLSI CAD tool. It is a backend tool, and it is specifically called as layout editor. The workspace of Microwind represents Okay, so workspace of Microwind represents a silicon wafer. Silicon wafer. Hence, all dimensions are in nanometers. This is the main difference. Okay, so Microwind is a VLSI CAD tool. It is a backend tool. It is a layout editor. Workspace represents a silicon wafer. Hence, all dimensions are in nanometer. On the other hand, Multisim and Proteus are circuit schematic editors. The workspace represents a PCB, hence all dimensions are in centimeters or millimeters. And ultimately understand one thing, that Microwind is actually aimed at manufacturing ICs. Okay, so it is meant for making integrated circuits. Okay, so this was the similarity and difference between Microwind and tools like Multisim and Proteus, which we have studied so far. Okay, so this point we have actually covered, and I will help you to appreciate how all the dimensions in Microwind are in nanometers. Okay, now most important thing, how to invoke the tool. So specifically I have not used the word installing Microwind. I have told invoking the tool, because this tool is so small, the entire setup does not um, you know have a disk space of more than 6 MB actually. You see the difference. Xilinx installable was 6.17 GB, and after installation it could take up to 20 GB on hard disk. But it is a very small tool but very efficient and very useful. So that is why I say that invoking the tool from hard disk. So now our writing and theory part is over. Now directly we go to the tool. Now I assume that all of you have downloaded both the tools, Microwind version 3.1 and DS0 from my Google Drive link. So if suppose you have downloaded it, it should look something like this. Okay, so I go to my hard disk where these two tools have been downloaded. So Microwind 3.1 full and DSCH03 should be the two folders which should come on your hard disk after you have downloaded from Google Drive. So it's very simple. How to invoke the tool is like this. Please see carefully now. So go inside this folder Microwind 3.1 full. After going inside, there is one more folder called as system. In this system folder, there is one application file, microwind31.exe. So you can either double click this file to open the tool, or else best is that you select this, right click, and you can send to desktop as a shortcut. Okay, yeah, so now this application file has gone to my desktop. So I will go to my desktop and see here it is coming as Microwind 3 shortcut. You can also put this on your taskbar like this. So I will delete on my end, unpin from taskbar, and I can just say right click. I can say send to pin to taskbar. So it has come here. I can also move this tool with other tools, right? So either, so you can double click this, and by double clicking this particular application file shortcut, the tool is invoked. So when I double click this, this is what you see. Are you able to see a tool which has opened a different kind of a workspace in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this is the graphical user interface of Microwind version 3.2, 3.1, sorry. So as usual, because it is a Windows based tool, the upper bar is actually called as a title bar, where your file's name will be seen. Below that we have the menu bar, file menu, view menu, edit, simulate, compile, analysis, and help. So many of the options which are available under these menus are also available in the lower bar called as icon bar. This is the title bar, this is the menu bar, this is the icon bar, and below is the task bar. Okay, so task bar, title bar are two important things which actually tell about your file name or etc., which technology you are using. So this is basically the graphical user interface of Microwind 3.1. And here, if you see to my right, we have something called as palette. So just like we have a component library in Multisim and Proteus, we have something called as palette here. So basically it is also called as palette of layers. So I will tell you why it is called a palette of layers. So here whatever we want to draw in the workspace of Microwind, we will be getting those things in this palette of layers. So apart from this palette of layers, there is nothing extra available to make the layouts. From here it is there. So MOSFETs, layers, contacts, clock signals, capacitors, inductors, VDD and VSS supplies, as well as visible nodes for observing output. Everything will be available just from one place, that is palette of layers. Now suppose accidentally if the palette of layers gets closed like this, suppose if I accidentally click this and it goes away, then it can be brought again in two ways. On the icon bar you see here we have this particular icon called as show palette. If I click the show palette, the palette of layers again appears. And is another way of bringing the palette of layers is you can go to view and you can say palette of layers. Okay, so view palette of layers or else show palette is the way. So please understand one thing, that when you are attempting to make a layout here, make sure that palette of layers is visible to you. Okay, now see here, I had told you that the dimensions on the workspace of Microwind are in nanometers. So we see here, this is called as a dotted workspace, and such kind of a grid is also visible in tools like Multisim and Proteus. But here there is a difference. I will prove to you that how the distance between two dots here is not in centimeters or millimeters, but it is in nanometers. So please carefully note that in the black colored workspace, top left corner, I am seeing a scale which is something like what we see on the atlas or the maps, where it is written on the scale 1 centimeter is equal to 1000 kilometer. That means what? On the map, if suppose you measure with a scale, the distance between 2 points on the globe is 5 centimeters, then you should conclude that the distance is 5000 kilometers. So something like that is also written here. So please carefully see that on the top left corner of the workspace, it is written 5 lambda, and below that it is written 0.250 mu m. So I'll again go back to my OneNote and write something to tell you that what does it mean. So in the workspace, it is written like this. It is written here 5 lambda, and below that it is written 0.250 mu m. So please understand one thing, it means 5 lambda equal to 0.250 micrometers, and because VLSI is all about nanometers, I will convert this into nanometers by telling it is equal to 250 nanometers. So naturally, all of you are very intelligent. If 5 lambda is equal to 250 nanometers, lambda comes out to be 50 nanometers. And one important Viva question which is asked, that what is the target technology you have used for making the layout of your design. So if this question is asked in part A, what is your target technology for implementing USR FIFO ALU? Answer is, it is XC3S 250E PQ208-5. This is the IC or the FPGA which is the target technology for any assignment of part A. But when the same question is asked in part B, the answer comes in nanometers. So whenever the question is asked, what is the target technology for your CMOS, NAND gate, NOR gate, the answer is actually 2 lambda. So I write here target technology in part B is equal to 2 times lambda. In our case, it comes out to be 100 nanometers. So there are different names which technologists use for this word target technology, and the alternates are called as foundry, node, process, minimum feature size, and last but not the least, it is the channel length of the MOSFET. So whenever any of these questions are asked to you, that what is the target technology or foundry or node or process or minimum feature size or channel length, used by you? The answer is a common answer, and it is 2 lambda equal to 100 nanometers. Okay, and as far as the tool is concerned, out of these 6 words, we are going to observe the word used by the vendor is called as foundry. So in our case, our microwind tool is using foundry of 100 nanometers. Now let me tell you this thing, that it is not compulsory that you must use 100 nanometer foundry. You can also use other foundry. So I will also teach you that suppose if I have made a CMOS inverter using 100 nanometer foundry, if somebody tells me, can you make the same inverter using another foundry? Yes, I am having a facility to use foundries, both having values larger than 100 nanometer or less than 100 nanometer. And you know that in the field of VLSI, smaller the value of foundry or channel length, more efficient the MOSFET becomes. So smaller the value of foundry, better it is. That is why question is asked, can you use an inferior foundry than 100 nanometers? Then I should choose a foundry which is greater than 100 nanometers. If it is told to me, can you use a superior foundry than 100 nanometers? The answer is yes, I can use. I can use anything which is having value less than 100 nanometers. I will teach you how to change the foundry and make a design. Okay, so that is why here the dimensions are on in nanometers. So I again go back to the tool and I see here what I will use. I will use another tool called as measure distance, and I will tell you what is the distance between two dots on the workspace. So I go to this particular tool called as measure distance. I click this tool and I just span the distance equal to that between two dots, and we see here immediately when I do that, it is showing 0.250 mu or 250 nanometers. Got the point? So that means if my target technology is 2 lambda equal to 5 I'm very sorry, this is 250 nanometers. So it is actually the distance between two dots. So 250 nanometers will be how much? So the distance between two dots is coming to be 250 nanometers, right? So on the workspace, I find that the distance between two dots is 250 nanometers. So naturally, because lambda equal to 50 nanometers, this is equal to 5 lambda. Okay, so this proves that the workspace of microwind tool has distances not in millimeters or centimeters but in nanometers. Okay, that is why this covers our points. Invoking the tool from hard disk, I have taught you. Tool workspace also I have told you how does it look like. Okay, and target technology also is over. Okay, so target technology means it is equal to 2 lambda, and lambda is found from the scale which is seen on the top left corner of tools workspace. Tool GUI. So please see this thing. I already told you this is called as a title bar. This is the menu bar, file, view, edit up to help. This is called as icon bar. This is the workspace. This is the target technology indication top left corner. What is at the bottommost part of the GUI is called as the task bar, and this is called as a palette of layers. So the GUI of the tool contains nothing but these things which I told you just now. It's very, very simple. And if you see on the taskbar, there are some things written. So you also get an idea about the target technology by seeing what is written on the taskbar. You see here it is written CMOS 90 nanometer, 6 metal, copper stranded, silicon germanium, low K factor, 1.2 volts, 2.5 volts. That means there are some voltage specifications written of the foundry. Also it is written it is 90 nanometer. Now I will tell you how to change the foundry. So for example, if I do not want to use the target technology 2 lambda equal to 100 nanometer, this is how I changed it. Okay, so I go to file menu, I say select foundry. As soon as I click select foundry, the tool tells me which kind of file you want to choose. So please note carefully that there is a collection of different files and all the files are having extension .rul. It is written CMOS 06.rul, it's file. CMOS 08 rule file. CMOS 01 to rule file. So now currently I am working on this file CMOS 90. So I will select this and say open, and the scale should not change. So if I select CMOS 90 and rule, I am seeing that the scale continues to remain 5 lambda equal to 250 nano, lambda equal to 50 nano, and target technology is 2 lambda equal to 100 nano. Now I will go to file, select foundry, and I will select say CMOS 018 dot rule, and we see here immediately we see that the scale has changed from 5 lambda equal to 500 nano, lambda equal to 100 nano, and target technology now is 200 nano. And you see down in the taskbar it is written CMOS 0.18 micrometer, that is 180 nanometer technology is used. Another example, go to file, select foundry, and you can say CMOS 45N dot rule, and we see here the scale has changed to 5 lambda equal to 125 nano, lambda equal to 25 nano, and target technology is now 50 nanometer. So immediately we see here, now there is one doubt which student can have, that sir, from the scale our target technology is coming equal to 50 nanometer, but in the taskbar it is written 45 nanometer. Now see here, I have selected 45 nanometer rule, but what I get according to the scale is 50 nanometer. So this is called as the difference between fabricated channel length and available channel length. So please understand one thing, in the MOSFET structure we have a p-type substrate and we have a n plus diffusion for drain and source. So you know that whenever p and n regions come together, they form what is called as a depletion region. So in the MOSFET structure also, between the source and substrate there is a depletion region, and between drain and substrate there is another depletion region. So as such, the channel length is defined as the distance between drain and source. So what happens is that the fabrication engineer, he actually fabricates a MOSFET having the drain to source separation or channel length equal to 50 nanometer. But because of depletion regions formed at both source and the drain region, there is some loss of length. So what happens is that although the fabrication engineer has kept the channel length equal to 50 nanometers, but because of the subtraction of the two depletion regions, what is available is 45 nanometer. So that means if I need an effective channel length or available channel length of 45 nanometers, I must have a fabrication greater than 45. So whenever I need 45 nanometers, the fabrication should be 50 nanometers. Whenever I need 180 nanometers, the fabrication should be more than 180 nanometers. That is why whenever I select the 180 nanometer rule file by going to CMOS 018 rule, I see that below it is written 180 nanometer in the taskbar, but according to the scale, my 2 lambda comes as 200 nanometer. So the difference between the scale and the foundry is that the scale actually tells us the fabricated channel length during manufacturing, and the rule file says us the available channel length. So fabricated channel length is equal to the available channel length plus the depletion region. So we can actually write it like this. So calculating foundry value from the scale gives us 2 lambda, which is actually the fabricated channel length. It is called as L, and the rule file gives me available channel length, which is called as L effective. So the relationship between fabricated length and channel length is like this. So we write that L effective is equal to L minus 2 multiplied by delta L, where delta L is the width of depletion regions. width of depletion regions at source to substrate and drain to substrate. So substrate terminal is called as B or body. Okay, that is why it is like this. Okay, yes. Now as per our agenda, we are supposed to define the correct starting point for drawing the layout. So if you remember carefully, when I started teaching you the part B assignment and also in the class, I had made a statement that the correct starting point for entity declaration is the block diagram. And you know that block diagram is always drawn on paper. We also told that the correct starting point for architecture body is truth table or function table or Boolean expression or state diagram. So till we do not draw the correct block diagram and the correct truth table or function table on paper, we cannot actually start writing the entity declaration and architecture body. Similarly, I have defined something called as correct starting point for making the layout. Okay, so that is why we now define correct starting point. So the correct starting point for making any layout, in the sense any layout means irrespective of the tool you are going to use, the correct starting point for making any layout in Microwind is, now listen carefully, transistor level schematic. So another name for schematic is circuit. Okay, so transistor level schematic of the system, and this system can be a NOT gate or an AND gate or a NOR gate. It can be a half adder, it can be a full adder, it can also be a plain multiplexer, or it can also be 1-bit memory cell. That is why when I say system, now refers to all of our assignments. So anything from 1 point A to 1 point F or 2 and 3 are all called as systems. So in order to make the layouts for all these 8 assignments, what we have to do is that on paper we have to actually make the transistor level schematic, and I say on paper. Okay, and when I say transistor, please understand one thing, by transistor I mean MOSFETs and not BJTs. Very clear about this thing. Okay, so define the correct starting point for making any layout in Microwind now. Okay, so here we have defined the correct starting point. Now we are going to enlist the steps to draw the layout of CMOS inverter. So now we frame a problem statement and we'll gradually move to actually making the layout in Microwind. Okay, so here steps for drawing layout of CMOS inverter. Okay, so the first and default step for drawing the layout of CMOS inverter is nothing but our correct starting point. That means the first step will be draw the transistor level schematic of CMOS inverter on paper. Our paper is our OneNote today. Okay, second step is terminalize the circuit diagram. So when I say terminalize, It actually means we have to indicate the MOSFET terminal. So I can say terminalize means indicate drain, gate and source. That is the meaning of the word terminalize the circuit diagram. Third, so once you know that my system's transistor level schematic contains so many PMOSs and so many NMOSs, then what you do is I cannot say drag because this is actually basically a drag and drop tool. So I will say place all MOSFETs into workspace using MOS generator in palette of layers. So POL is called as palette of layers, and there is one particular option available in palette of layers called as MOS generator. So place all MOSFETs into the workspace using MOS generator in palette of layers. The next step is align MOSFETs suitably. Okay, so when I say align MOSFET suitably, you can align them horizontally or vertically, or you may also have to rotate the MOSFETs. So I will tell you how to rotate horizontally, vertically align. Okay, so you can align the MOSFETs suitably to enable easy connectivity between their terminals. Okay, so you can align them horizontally or vertically using tools called as stretch or move. The stretch or move is the tool available, option available for aligning horizontally or vertically, and second option is actually rotate. It's as it is. Okay, so once you have aligned all the MOSFETs suitably, then what you have to do is that connect the terminals of MOSFETs to each other as per point number 2. I have written here. Okay, so the fifth point is connect the terminals of MOSFETs to each other as per point number 2. So in point number 2 we have indicated the drain, gate and source terminals. According to that you make the connectivity. So once you are connected, the next step what you have to do is that apply the voltage VDD and minus VSS to the system. This is most important step. So what I will do, I will skip step number 7 when I am doing a demo, and I will show you what happens and what it is called as, right? So after we applied VSS and VDD to the system, the next step is, this is very important, polarize all NVELs in your circuit. Okay, so when I say polarize actually means that is you are going to connect the NVEL to high to VDD. Okay, it actually means connect NVEL to plus VDD. Okay, we do not execute step number 7, what we get is a electrical rule error. So This ensures that well is not okay, and it also ensures that there is no electrical rule error. Okay, right? So once you have polarized all the n-wells in your circuit, so basically I will tell you how n-wells look like in the layout. Okay, 8th point is apply all input signals as per point number 2. 9th, define all output nodes as per point 2. You see, point 2 is so important. It has come in 3 steps actually. Now once you have given all the inputs and defined all the outputs, the next step is perform DRC. So DRC stands for design rule check. Okay, so what is this design rule check? It will actually come in theory after some sessions. So basically in IC design on wafer, there are some rules defined which tell what should be the minimum separation between components on the wafer. So just like in the field of building construction, civil engineering, there are some rules defined that if you are going to raise two buildings next to each other, they have defined a rule that the minimum separation between two windows in two adjacent buildings is so many feet. So just like in civil engineering and building construction, they define minimum. Similarly here on the wafer also, there are minimum distance of separation which are defined. So if a PMOS comes too close to an NMOS, there may be interference. So they are defined that the minimum distance between PMOS and NMOS should be so many lambda. Similarly, the distance between polysilicon layer and metal should be so much lambda. So to ensure no crosstalk or interference, we have defined design rules, and the tool helps us to check if some design rules have been violated or not. So in order to do so, the tool will not allow us to do simulation if our design or our layout is having design rule errors. So we have to perform a DRC. So once you are through with the DRC, then the next step is that you simulate. That's it. Simulate, observe the outputs, analyze and conclude. Okay, so now we have actually jotted down, enlisted 11 steps for making the layout of a CMOS inverter, and these are actually generic steps. You have to follow these 11 steps for CMOS, NAND, NOR, and OR, half adder, multiplexer, transmission gate, as well as for 1-bit SRAM cell. These are generic things, and once you learn this, it's very easy. Okay, so I will not read out all the points, but I will tell you that okay, point number 1 is to be implemented like this, right? So except point number 1 and 2, all steps from point number 3 to 11 are done on the tool. I repeat, except step number 1 and 2, all the remaining steps are to be executed on the tool, right? So first, draw the transistor level schematic of CMOS inverter on paper. Okay, here it is. Transistor level schematic of CMOS inverter. See, so you know this, you have also studied this in second year of engineering. Okay, so in the class also we have been doing this thing, that is we first make the power rails VDD and VSS, And then because we are thorough with our circuit diagram, that is why we also define the output Y. And you know that there is a PMOS between output node and VDD, and there is an NMOS. Right? So now I have to connect the gates of PMOS and NMOS, and there is where actually I define my input signal V in. Okay, so we can also define this thing as V out. Okay, so as such, this is the correct transistor level schematic of a CMOS inverter. Now what I do is that I am going to execute step number 2. The step number 2 says that terminalize the circuit diagram, that is to indicate drain, gate and source here. Okay, so here step number 2 I am going to execute here on itself. Okay, so as I told you, whenever you draw a PMOS on paper, the upper terminal of PMOS is always source and the lower terminal is drain. On the other hand, when you draw an NMOS on paper, the upper terminal is always drain, the lower is always source, and gate is as usual here. Okay, now see students, please understand one thing, that I can read this circuit diagram in this way. Okay, the source of PMOS, so you should be very clear. If you are still confused, I can actually write P here indicating this is the PMOS, the NMOS, right? Now see here, the source of PMOS is connected to plus VDD, the source of NMOS is connected to minus VSS. Drain of NMOS are connected together and their intersection is defined as the output node. Similarly, the gate of PMOS is connected to gate of NMOS and their intersection is defined as the input node. This is how you read the circuit. And the way you read the circuit is the way you actually transfer this verbal explanation of circuit into the layout in the workspace of micro:end. So I repeat here, source of PMOS connected to VDD, source of NMOS connected to ground, drain of PMOS, drain of NMOS connected together and intersection defined as output node V out, gate of PMOS and gate of NMOS connected together and the intersection defined as V in. Nothing more. This the second step number 2 is also executed now when we have terminalized our circuit. Okay, so we can say terminalized. Okay, now students, one thing is that whenever you see that PMOS and NMOS on workspace, so please understand one thing, you can make this circuit diagram in Multisim and Proteus. So in Multisim and Proteus, a PMOS looks like this, that is, it has a symbol and it has a drain, source and gate terminal. Similarly, if you drag and drop an NMOS in tools like Multisim and Proteus, the NMOS will look in the form of a symbol and it will have drain, source and gate. But when you place MOSFETs in the workspace of layout editors, they do not look the way they look in Multisim and Proteus. They look completely different. So how they look like, I will show you. So how do I do that? I have taken snapshots of PMOS and NMOS and I will explain it too. So what I will do is that, now what is our next step? Our next step is place all the MOSFETs into workspace. So now I'm going to place the MOSFET in workspace, and when you see them, you will not understand where is my drain, where is my source and where is my gate. So first I will do that, then I will bring those layers in OneNote and I'll explain you which terminal is what. So how do you do that? I've already written in my notes that place all MOSFETs in workspace using MOS generator in palette of layers. So go to the tool, go to palette of layers, and here it is, MOS generator. Click that. As soon as you click the MOS generator, you have one dialog box which has many tabs: pads, inductors, contacts, MOS, path, logo, bus, res, diode and capacitance. So actually when you click this, then automatically the MOS tab is actually selected, and we see here some important things. Down there are 3 buttons: NMOS, PMOS and double gate. So whichever button is pressed, that device is selected, and after selecting that, as soon as I click generate device, what happens is that device gets stuck to my mouse pointer. It is not seen, so it is not seen, but it has got stuck, and when you click anywhere in the workspace, that device gets placed in the workspace. I repeat that there are three kinds of devices available: double gate MOS, PMOS and NMOS. And after selecting that device, when I click generate device, what happens is this. So now I have selected PMOS. I will click generate device. Now the device has got stuck, and when I just click anywhere, it comes here. So what I will do, I will actually shoot this. Now what I will do, I have my foundry is not proper. It is actually 200 nanometer foundry. I don't want to use that. I'll say go select foundry, CMOS 90, and we are back to 100 nanometer or 90 nanometer here. So I go here and I click here. Now I have to first place PMOS. So I select PMOS. One important thing here is that it is written the width is 500 nano, length is 100 nano, and in the MOSFET theory it is said that the ratio of width upon length is called as size. So please understand one thing, that irrespective of the kind of MOSFET you select here, but the width of that device is 500 nano, length is 100 nano, so the size is 5. I repeat that by default Microwind offers us MOSFETs having size equal to 5. So the size of MOSFET is width upon length. Width is 500 nano, length is 100 nano, so the size is 5. So I select PMOS, I say generate device, and see now the device has got stuck, and as soon as I click here, it has come. Okay, so PMOS looks like this. PMOS looks like this, and then I again go to MOS generator, select NMOS, I say generate NMOS, right? So PMOS looks like this and NMOS looks like this. Now, where is drain, where is source, and where is the gate? If you do not know this, you will not be able to connect the terminals together. So here I go and I will insert both PMOS and NMOS, and I will tell you that which terminal is to be interpreted as what. We have PMOS here, so I will open and I will write it here. Okay. And again I go down and I will insert NMOS also here. Okay, go here. Please see carefully. I'm going to write which terminal is what. So understand one thing, students, that this fluorescent green boundary which is seen is actually called as an N-well. This is a PMOS. Always understand, as I told you, that the upper terminal of PMOS is to be assumed as source and the lower as drain. So students, please pay attention. This blue colored square.
हेलो सर.
Yes.
सर गजानन बोल रहा हूँ सर.
सर मेरा क्लास चल रहा है, इसलिए मैं आपका क्लास कॉल नहीं अटेंड किया
नहीं
सर.
सर, वो क्लास में नहीं सर, लैब का आज लैब सेशन में फीडबैक लेना है सर.
सर थोड़ी देर बाद लेंगे सर. हाँ
हाँ, सर 11 बजे के पहले.
ठीक है सर, अभी थोड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट चल रहा है सर और पढ़ाना है.
हाँ हाँ, मेरे को थोड़ा मैसेज दीजिए. मैं चैट में डाला है वैसा.
सर आप बात मत कीजिए, मेरा रिकॉर्डिंग चल रहा है सर.
नहीं सर, अभी कॉलेज का ही है सर फीडबैक. सर एचओडी सर ही बोले.
ठीक है सर, थोड़ी देर बाद.
हाँ हाँ.
Okay, so this upper blue colored square is actually to be assumed as source. Similarly, the lower square is to be assumed as drain. Okay, and most important thing is this red colored bar is actually the gate. And exactly opposite here, as I told you, the upper terminal of a PMOS, upper terminal of NMOS is to be assumed as drain. That is why, please understand that this is my drain. Similarly, lower is source, and as usual, this is my gate. So please see the difference that there is no N well in an NMOS. So the PMOS device is always fabricated into an N well. Okay, and please understand one thing. I told one point, that is step number 7. Polarize all N wells in your circuit. So polarizing N well means connecting the N well to plus VDD. So you have to put a VDD anywhere in the empty space. So if somebody says that you have to put you have to connect the N well to plus VDD, that means you can put VDD anywhere. You can put VDD here or here or here or here. Anywhere in the empty space you can put a VDD. That is why when I say that polarize N well or connect the N well to VDD, you have to actually put a VDD anywhere here. But you cannot put it here. You cannot put a VDD here. You can never put VDD here. You can never put VDD here. So you cannot put VDD inside the device. You have to put it outside the device but inside the well. Okay, now it is very clear. So whenever we want to make a connection, we see here that the drains are connected together. So I have to make a connection between the drains. So I have to connect this to this, but please understand one thing, that I have to use metal 1 layer for this. So metal 1 layer is actually solid blue. Okay, similarly I have to connect the gates together. So I have to connect the gates like this, and for connecting the gates I have to use polysilicon layer. Okay, polysilicon, and this is actually solid red in color. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, yeah, so now you have understood how the PMOS and NMOS looks like. So now we are going to go very fast because everything has been explained here. So I go here, right? So now we have already executed step number 3. I have placed all the MOSFETs in the workspace. Now the next step is align. So I go here, and for alignment, as I told you, I have to use the tool that is called a stretch and move. So select stretch and move, and then don't put the NMOS too close. If you put it too close, there will be design rule errors. Minimum distance of separation will be violated. So I will put it optimally away. So now how I have to put it? Now I very well know that my gates have to be connected, right? So you know very well that now see, again repeating, source of PMOS, drain of PMOS, gate of PMOS, drain of NMOS, source of NMOS, gate of NMOS. Now you know that I have to connect. Now this is the gate. The middle vertical red bar is the gate. So I have to connect gate of PMOS to gate of NMOS. That is why if they are vertically aligned, then I can connect them using minimum amount of polysilicon. You see here, everything is different. Student doesn't know metals are different. You see here, I will draw every metal here. So metal 1 like this, metal 2 like this, metal 3 like this, metal 4, metal 5, metal 6, polysilicon, polysilicon 2. So students, please understand one thing, for connecting drains together, sources together. So if you want to connect drain to drain, source to source, drain to source, you have to use metal 1. So metal 1 has to be used. So I will delete everything. So in order to delete something, you have to use this gun. That is called as delete some layout. So I will delete everything which is not required. So I need only metal 1. So I am deleting all remaining 5 metals. I do not want polysilicon 2 also. So don't make the mistake of connecting the gates using polysilicon 2. You are not supposed to use polysilicon 2. You're supposed to use polysilicon. So polysilicon looks like this. So now there is some malalignment. How to know? Okay, I will show you how to understand the malalignment. So you have to connect it like this. You have to do some drawing. Okay. You see here, there is malalignment here. है ना? हो गया ना malalignment? So I will say there is only one undo available. Huh? Okay. So what I will do is I will go to stretch and move, and I will move it little bit like this, and I feel it is aligned properly. Now I will execute all the steps together. I will connect all the terminals. So what I will do is connect the drains together. So connect drain of PMOS to drain of NMOS. How to do? Take metal one, connect it here. Now you have to connect the gates together. So take polysilicon and you connect it here. Okay, now it is perfect alignment is there. Now what is the step? Our transistor level schematic shows that I have to connect the source of PMOS to VDD and source of NMOS to ground. So how to connect VDD is like this. Okay, so VDD is available here in the palette of layers, VDD supply. So if I want to connect, so where is the source? Source of PMOS connected to VDD. Take VDD and just go and drop it in the blue square. Similarly, here is my source of NMOS connected to ground. Take the ground, go and just put it in anywhere in the blue colored square. So VDD and ground have been given. The gates have been connected. The drains also have been connected. Now the next step is that I will purposefully not polarize the well. I will not connect the N well to VDD. The green colored fluorescent boundary is actually N well. So now I will apply the input. So now input is to be applied at the intersection of gates. So take the clock signal here and just put it here. So then you can name that as V in, and you can also see the frequency. So the frequency is defined like this here. Time low means T off, time high means T on. So the T off is 90 picoseconds, T on is 90 picoseconds, rise time, fall time are 10 picoseconds. You cannot make them 0. Okay, so if I do a summation of T on and T off, it approximately comes to 180 picoseconds. A reciprocal of 180 picoseconds time period comes out to be approximately little bit more than 5 gigahertz. So I am going to apply 5 gigahertz clock. If suppose I want to make the clock faster or slower, I can click faster and immediately we see that the on time and off time have reduced to half. The frequency has doubled for approximately 5 gigahertz to 10 gigahertz. I can come back here. If I click slower, again it is becoming double. So frequency of the clock can be doubled and halved by clicking these two buttons. So I will say faster, so it becomes a 5 gigahertz clock, and you have to say click assign. Before clicking assign, make sure that this button is clicked that is visible in simulation. If suppose this button shows not in simulation, then in the waveforms you will not be able to see V in. So click, make sure it is visible in simulation, say assign. Okay, it has been assigned here. So please understand one thing, clock has to be given not anywhere on this vertical bar, but it has to be given outside the N well. If I give the clock like this, it is wrong. You cannot give the clock inside the PMOS device. It should be outside the PMOS device. Okay. Now I know that the intersection of drains is my output Y. So I will select this option, visible node, click this. And I go here and I have to drop this visible node anywhere outside the N well again. So I can drop it here, here, and anywhere. So just click it here and you can change the name. And same thing is that before clicking assign, make sure that visible in simulation is selected. So I say assign. So now Vout is there. So my entire layout has been made. The VDD VSS have been given, terminals have been connected, input has been given, and output node has been defined. Now what I do, according to the steps, step number 6 is over, 8 is over, 9 is also over. I will perform a DRC now. So how to perform DRC? If you feel that our layout is complete, go here. There is an option called as design rule checker. Click this. As soon as you click this, if there are no design rule errors, a message is coming down in the taskbar. No design rule error. Congratulations, 0.6% memory used. So if you use more amount of polysilicon or metal one material by keeping the NMOS and PMOS even away from each other, then the value of this percentage will increase. So this percentage basically tells you that how much is the area occupied by our inverter on the silicon wafer. Is it okay? So this can vary. It can be 0.8, it can be 0.5 also. No problem. So basically no design rule error message is important. So now after step number 10, we have to simulate, observe, analyze, and conclude. So what you do is that you go here and in the icon bar, there is this icon called as run simulation. So now I have not polarized the NVL purposefully in order to show you that if we do not polarize the NVLs, what is the error message the tool gives. So I will just click simulate. When I click simulate, it is giving me a message, well polarization warning. Warning, one NVL region is floating. Floating NVL can damage either the chip and software. One is having the freedom of telling still simulate, but it is not a good practice. So I will always do cancel simulation. Okay. So it should actually not do what it is doing right now. If I want to eliminate this warning, I again go to palette of layers. I will select VDD and I will go and drop it anywhere in the empty space of NVL. Okay, anywhere in the empty space of NVL I'm going to drop. So I can drop it here, here, anywhere. Okay, so I drop it. Once done, yeah, most important thing, you should save it. So I will say file. If you just click save, it will save with the name example.msk. So please remember one thing, in Microwind, the layouts are saved in a file with extension .msk. So I will not click save this file. I will click file, save as, and I will put it somewhere in my pen drive. Okay, for example. And I will say CMOS underscore inv underscore 90 because I am using 90 nanometer technology. I'll say, right? So the name has changed. It is telling me it is in D:(CMOS inverter. Now I will say simulate, and you see here the error did not come. This is our simulation window. The upper waveform is Vin in fluorescent green color. Lower waveform is Vout in red color. Now we do not need to see so many cycles. At the same time, I want a more clearer view, so I can appreciate that my output is a complement of input. So how to do that? Remove all these checkboxes and just say reset. So when you say reset, all the measurements are gone, but still I do not need so many cycles, so I can change the time scale, and actually I can say, okay, it should be lesser. So I will say, yeah, so I will say like this. Okay. If you want to see lesser cycles, 1 nano. Okay. You are seeing here, students, the fluorescent green waveform when Vin is 1, Vout is 0. When Vin is 0, Vout is 1. So this is actually the functionality of a CMOS NOT gate. So students, what we are seeing the waveform is simply voltage versus time. The next is voltage and current. So next current, here nothing is seen. It will be seen when I click reset. So as soon as I click the reset, the waveforms have actually generated now. So we see here, click carefully, the upper half of the waveform window is having a unit of milliamperes. So students, this is the waveform for supply current I supply. Okay, so upper half of waveform is the supply current I supply, and the bottom half of the waveform is actually a combination of Vout and Vin. So we see here in the bottom part, it is written Vout in red color and Vin in green color. So Vout and Vin are actually simultaneously in the lower half of the waveform. And we see here that they are complements of each other. Now carefully you should note that there are spikes in between. So you see here the supply current is showing a spike when the output is transitioning, right? So whenever my output, that is red waveform, is going from 1 to 0, there is a current spike. Whenever the output is going from 0 to 1, current spike. This is called as shoot through fault or cross conduction. So what happens is whenever the input is changing from 0 to 1, so the PMOS is going from on to off state. Similarly, the NMOS is going from off to on state. So for some time, because of non-zero turn off and turn on times of MOSFETs, for a very short duration, what happens is that the PMOS has not completely switched off and NMOS has switched on. So PMOS and NMOS are now simultaneously conducting, and they create a short circuit between VDD and VSS. Because of that, there is a current transient between the VDD and VSS. That is why these are current spikes. So current spikes in the supply are generated only at the switching instance of the output. Okay. Then we have voltage versus voltage. It is basically Vout versus Vin. So the y-axis is Vout and x-axis is Vin. So we can clearly see on x-axis when Vin equal to 0, the value of Vout is 1.2 volts. So basically what is 1.2? 1.2 volts is nothing but equal to VDD or logic 1, and 0 volts is nothing but it is equal to logic 0, 0 volts. Okay. So for 19 nanometer technology, the VDD is actually 1.2 volts. So output is shuffling between plus VDD and 0 volts. So this is called as the voltage transfer curve or VTC characteristics. So VTC characteristics of any circuit is actually a plot of Vout versus Vin, and here you know that Vout is equal to Vin bar. So when Vin is 0 volts or logic 0, Vout is logic 1 or 1.2 volts. Similarly, when Vin is equal to 1.2 volts or logic 1, the output is equal to 0 volts or logic 0. So basically, we are interested in seeing voltage versus time waveform, voltage and current waveform, and voltage versus voltage waveform. Okay. So there are many more things which actually can be told, but this is the basics of the tool microvent. Right. So enlisting steps to draw layout is over. Demonstrating the steps is also over. I've already told you V in V out versus time waveform, then V out versus supply current, and the voltage transfer characteristics V out versus V in is also done. Yeah, noting the dynamic power dissipation in the circuit, right? So here, if we see carefully, here, so after the simulation is complete, we will get some value here. You are seeing here. So in this particular waveform window, in the bottom right corner, we are having something written as P equal to 6.903 microwatt. So this is called as the dynamic power dissipation of my CMOS inverter. So if the number of MOSFETs will increase, there will be more number of MOSFET switching. So this dynamic power dissipation is actually a function of how many devices are actually continuously switching in the circuit. So now if you see here, my input is at 5 gigahertz. How do I come to know? You just click frequency here and you say reset. And we are seeing here that my output waveform is actually running at 5.02 gigahertz. Okay. And there are delay and burst values. So we can also get the rise time and fall time here. So we are seeing here clearly, students, that after some cycles, my rise time is 3 picoseconds and my fall time is 1 picosecond. This is actually a drawback or a flaw in design. So as per the theory of CMOS logic, if I use PMOS and NMOS of same size, now the size of PMOS is 5 and NMOS is also 5. So when you use equal size MOSFETs for making a CMOS system, the rise time and fall time can never be equal. So here we see here that the rise time is 3 picoseconds and fall time is 1 picoseconds, which is not good. So if I use the concept of transistor sizing, then actually I can make these rise time and fall times equal. Okay. So this dynamic power dissipation is actually a function of load capacitance, VDD, and the clock frequency. So what I will do, I will increase the clock frequency. Now see, please note the dynamic power dissipation here is 5.75 microwatts. So I'll go here in the design. I will double click V in and I will say faster once and I will say assign. I will say resimulate. And after simulation, we will see that the dynamic power dissipation should have doubled. You see here it has become 10.438. So it has got doubled. What I will do now, I will go and I will make it half. So it was say slower, assign, become almost half of 5.75 our original value. You see it is approximately 3 microwatts. So when the frequency of clock is halved and doubled, the dynamic power dissipation also becomes half and it becomes double. Is it clear? Yeah. So I feel that in the subsequent sessions, I will teach you this thing. So we have also noted the dynamic power dissipation of the circuit. Last but not the least, let me write down the formula for dynamic power dissipation of a CMOS system. P dynamic is equal to CL into VDD square into FCLK. So this is load capacitance, this is the bias voltage, and this is the clock frequency. So we can clearly see the dynamic power dissipation here is directly proportional to load capacitance, directly proportional to square of the supply voltage, and directly proportional to FCLK. So we have already seen the effect of halving and doubling this thing. CL I'll show you next time, and VDD here. So there is no possibility that we can change the value of VDD. So please understand one thing, that VDD is actually a function of the foundry selected. So till I do not change the rule file, my VDD cannot change at all. Okay. So if I want to see what is the effect if I change the VDD from 1.2 volts to 1.8 volts, what I have to do is this, is that I have to change the foundry. So I cannot change the foundry here. So as soon as I say select foundry here, so I'll have to say first file new. It is asking me, do you want to save? I'll say save. New layout has come. I will say now, see here the technology is 90 nanometer. So supply is 1.2 volts here, 1.2 volts, 2.5 volts. File select foundry, say CMOS 018 rule. I'll say open, and after opening here we see that the scale has changed from lambda equal to 50 to lambda equal to 100 nanometer, and here you see the supply voltage has gone up to 2 volts. So please understand one thing, that while remaining in 90 nanometer foundry, I cannot change the supply voltage. I have to select a new foundry, I have to make a new inverter and say then only I have to see the effect.